the hot topic today, the one that probably will put me in hot water compared to anything else that I probably will or have talked about, religion in schools. And we've seen, if you haven't, I thought I had something on my shirt, sorry. If you've seen in Texas, they're already having they're trying to approve curriculum to integrate Christian lessons within their schools. In Louisiana, they're trying to put up the 10 Commandments. I don't think that's in all schools. I think it might just be in certain districts. I don't know. And then in Oklahoma, some people are really agitated with the superintendent of Oklahoma because I actually read an article. They felt like what he did, first of all, I don't know if he did, but he purchased, or he will purchase 500 Bibles, and everybody wants to know, where do you get the money from? Where'd you get the funding from? And then second of all, they said that the real reason why he's doing this is because his name was brought up to be one of the appointees for Trump, I guess in some type of, I think for the Secretary of Education, I'm not too sure about that, but that's like, he's trying to do it for attention and not really do it for, I don't know, he doesn't really have good intentions of why he's doing it. He's mostly doing it for personal intentions, for his own gain. But the idea of religion in schools, I'm not trying to prove whether or not this is right or wrong. For me, I'm looking at it from a historical standpoint. I think I've said it many times before, I've studied, I have a degree in history and political science. This is what I do. This is what I just try to help people understand why I feel like something should be taking place, or why they should or should not be taking place, based on what I have observed throughout history. And I just try to help other people understand other people's perspective and be open to other people's perspective as well, and why they believe what they believe, or why we shouldn't believe what other people believe, That's all. But when I see schools like Louisiana, Texas, and Oklahoma, and I think about the founding fathers and their idea of trying to separate church from state, and I look back at history, and I understand why they wanted to separate church and state, why they wanted to keep, religion out of government. And our public schools, are part of, whether they be the state government or the federal government, they still are, part of the state, their own degree by whatever government, either by the state government or the federal government. But the founding fathers really, I think even one of them was an atheist. So we cannot even try to say that the founding fathers really tried to build this country upon Christian values. Yes, maybe themselves they were Christians, but that was not the goal of our founding fathers. They really, like I said, they try to keep church and state separate. They try to keep religion out of government. Because when you look back at history and you see things like the Spanish Inquisition, where the Spanish monarchy was telling, Jewish and Muslim people to convert or die, and some of them didn't convert and they were executed. Some of them were converted and still were persecuted still. Some of them had to flee because they were not willing to convert. When you look at things like in Japan, when, I don't know exactly the time period, but when you look at, Japan, when, I think it was feudal Japan, when Christianity was coming into the country, they made a movie about this. It has Andrew Garfield in it. It's called Silence, but it's actually a very good movie. But when you see things where, those who were practicing Buddhism were killing Christians, Japanese individuals who are trying to practice Christianity, these are the issues that I'm talking about. To a degree, I don't feel that, I got scared for a second that someone's gonna hit my car, sorry. But when I see things like this, whether they're theocracies that are against Christianity or theocracies that are trying to promote Christianity, I feel like Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma aren't doing it. I don't think they have good intentions. I think they're just doing it because they want it to dominate. If that makes sense. To a degree of, I'm not saying they're trying to, I don't think that they're going to go around and start executing people. Not like that. But when I can see like I said, I think the founding fathers looked at history and they understood of how extreme religion can get if we don't keep it separate from the government. I think they understood that was just something for an individual to seek spiritual guidance, spiritual salvation. It's an individual thing. And so that was that on the founding father idea. But not, for me personally, it does not make sense why you want to incorporate religion into schools. Because that's what we have church for. If that makes sense, like, that's what we have church. That's why we have churches, mosques, synagogues. And not only that, there are schools, like private schools, that have religious undertones to them, Catholic private schools. So it doesn't really make any sense to me why, but no, disregarding the, private Catholic schools, schools with religious undertones, if kids' parents are not taking them to churches to learn about, whatever beliefs that they believe, I don't feel like we need to start implementing that into the curriculum. It just does not make any sense to me. It just, literally, like, we have churches for a reason to learn about those things. And I just feel like if you have to go about implementing religion in the school for the children to learn about it, when we already have, in a sense, a resource, we build churches for these things, then I just feel like something's not right there. Like, if that makes sense. I just feel like for a long time when I look at schools and the history of them, I think we understand that education is a very powerful thing. And I think that we understand that people use schools to implement the education that they want children to have. I don't know, I wouldn't go as far as saying they're trying to indoctrinate children, but I think that there are groups that do have agendas, whether they be political, religious, whatever, and they understand how malleable a child's mind is, if that makes sense. What else do I want to talk about? And also too, when I was reading a few articles. One was from the New York Times, but from my understanding, this was about the Texas approved curriculum. From my understanding is that you can find the article online, and I'll probably link it. I'll link it under here. Sometimes the New York Times, they only give you like, you can only read a certain amount of free articles. Like, I don't know if it's like 3 a day or 3 a month, or 3 a week, I don't know. But you can probably look at it still, or find something similar to it. But one of the things, they had a quote in there, quote from somebody that was speaking about it. But from the way he said that the Bible is a fundamental text of Western civilization. First of all, if you understand the history of people, you can understand that many people didn't even read the Bible. They could not read at all. That's why we have stained glass. That's why stained glass was so important in churches. Because they actually told a visual Bible of the story, because many people could not read. And not only that, if you understand the Bible, we understand that can't say much about other religious texts, because my personal beliefs are Christianity and all that. And well, not all that, but believing in Jesus. I've read other religions. I see the similarities in them, but that's something that I just grew up with. Many of my people just believe in Jesus, but that's besides the point. We're not talking about that. But if you go through and you understand the Bible, we understand that there's so many versions of it. So many books have been taken out, so many scriptures, you just find so many different things about it. To me, it's hard to say that it's just a fundamental text when there's so many differences in it, and when so many people just couldn't even read it. I don't really understand what he meant by fundamental text. A fundamental text, sorry. I just don't understand. Like, maybe it needs to be explained more to me. Maybe that's something that I'm not getting at. But after he said that, he goes to say that if children, that in schools you're not going to understand what is being taught, especially those who are poor, immigrants, or have trouble reading if you don't read the Bible. There are many immigrants who have Christian values. Hispanics, or a majority of them, are Catholic. Like, they read the Bible all the time. Like, maybe they don't read the Bible, but they understand Christian values if they're Catholic. Like, I did not like that. How are you going to say that poor people, if they don't read the Bible, are going to understand the things that are being taught in schools? That just didn't make no sense to me. Maybe I didn't read it right, but I didn't like how he's those two things. And not only that, the article also stated that the problem is that some children are going to get confused about some things. One thing that it stated was that in the Texas curriculum that they're trying to they're trying to restate with the religious undertones in it. And I don't think it's everything, but you just have to read about it. I just read the New York Times article, but they said that they're trying to teach that, Abraham Lincoln and abolitionists of the time were Christians and that they wanted to stop slavery, but they're not going to teach, or they're going to limit the understanding that those who were slaveholders actually used the Bible to instill the idea that there needs to be slavery. And that's why sometimes I don't like when people make one-dimensional stories of history. It's not the idea that I'm not trying to, for me, I don't care about, this is not an idea about should religion be in schools or not. This is about, though, are you going to be teaching history the right way? And when you teach it the right way, every single thing that is being taught, everything that is in history will be taught, if that makes sense. The good and the bad. There is no good or bad history. It's just history. It's who we are as people. In order to understand who we are, we have to learn about history, and we have to learn about what we did in the past, so we can keep moving towards better things in the future. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with trying to teach people that, some slaveholders they were trying to use it to instill slavery. And maybe there were some people who were Christians and were abolitionists. But that now we understand today that slavery is not a good thing. It doesn't matter if it's in the Bible or not. It's just not a good thing. But I'm sorry to go off the rails a little bit, lose my train of thought a little bit. But like I said before, I don't think that it's not a debate on whether or not religion in schools is a good or bad thing. I think that we need to really focus on what the founding fathers thought. And I think that they saw that when governments begin to implement religious values into schools, or religious values into schools, or begin to rule with a religious outlook, then we're going to have issues. Maybe not to the extreme of Catholic Church excommunicating people, or people being executed, or people having to flee to continue practicing their beliefs, but I think that it becomes we're gonna have issues. I don't know what type of issues those will be, but I think those are the reasons why the founding father created the country that we did, so we could not have those issues. Maybe there are going to be issues of prejudice and bias, and maybe not hatred, but I think we're going to try to tell people that their ways aren't right. And I think also too, like I said before, to me though, it does not make sense to implement religion in the schools when we have things like churches where children can go to practice these beliefs. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, also too, maybe then Republicans could create after school programs at churches. If that's, maybe that could help people. Churches have been at the center point of people's lives. They've usually tried to provide aid to communities. We see this all the time. It still happens today with food pantries and providing meals and giving out clothes and helping the homeless. There's still churches like that today. Maybe the Republican Party should create an after school program that is centered around the church, and have children go there they can learn about Jesus, but also be provided do things within the church. I think it would help even people. Maybe it can be even help with child care in a sense. People are after work, they know that they're at the church, which is supposed to be a staple of goodness within communities. Maybe that could be something. But I just don't think that if there's already churches, why are we implementing religion in schools? if that makes sense. That's all I have to say about that. I know it's a hot topic. I know maybe I'll get some slack for it, but that's just from when I look at history. These are the things I worry about, and these are, I mean, a suggestion I gave to some degree, but this is all I have. This is all I have. I don't know what other people think. I know that Texas is already, you know, a lot of people are already against that. I know a lot of people did not like what the superintendent tried to do, and even some schools did not show that video. They thought it was really odd, really weird, but I don't know. I don't know where we're going to go from here.